I want to tell you about my Atlantis story and how I became involved with Atlantis. It first started for me when I was about 5 or 6 years old and I was watching TV back in the 70s, and I saw Man from Atlantis on TV, and I was always captivated by this show. It didn't last very long. The show got canceled after a period of time, but that's probably the first time I heard about Atlantis. This is like in 2000 when the Iconos satellite was available, and then Google kind of came out this time, and I knew that Atlantis was like a sunken island, and somehow I knew about it being 10,000 years ago, that it had sunk under the sea. And I saw this satellite photograph of the Bahama Bank, and I was like, wow, there's the sunken island right there.
There's nothing worse than the feeling you get when you're being played. It's happened to all of us at one time or another. Someone assures you that something is a fact, and they tell you they've done all the research. They know. And so, you believe them. But then, things start to come out that make you wonder if you accepted their claims a little too readily. Well, that happens with ancient history too. If you listen to some of the videos out there, you would think that it is mainstream history that is doing all the lying, the professors and the academics. Well, that's what they want you to think. There are charlatans on the internet, here on YouTube, even on Netflix, who in their efforts to get attention and make some money will try to take advantage of people's lack of knowledge about history to feed them rotten, stinking lies. We're going to talk about some of the common ones in this video. Maybe they will surprise you.
This is David Miano. David Miano is a historian that has a YouTube channel called World of Antiquity. I was commenting on David's video, Lies Told by Atlantis Proponents. And I brought up the fact that Plato says over and over again in the dialogue that Atlantis is real. It is not a myth. Plato says over and over again in the dialogues that it is real. He's saying, then listen, Socrates, to a tale which, though strange, is certainly true. Very good. And what is this ancient famous action of the Athenians which Critias declared on the authority of Solon not to be a mere legend, but an actual fact? Tell us, said the other, the whole story, and how and from whom Solon heard this veritable tradition. What does veritable mean? Definition of veritable: being in fact the thing named and not false, unreal, or imaginary. And David responded to me that you must distinguish between the author of a story and the characters within the story. Let's think of a story like The Wizard of Oz. Just because Dorothy says the yellow brick road is real, it doesn't make it so. And no matter how many facts that I could provide within the dialogue, they're always going to say it's a story that somebody made up. If I told you I was looking for the Wizard of Oz, you might think I was crazy. Would it be the same if I told you I was looking for Atlantis? Would you think I was crazy? But is there a difference between the two? There is. One features individuals who are made up, and one features individuals who are actual historical figures. The question is, did these historical figures have actual historical conversations? Let's see how David Miano explains this.
These are not Plato's lectures, nor Plato's historical works. They are Plato's dramas, in which characters in imaginative discussions spur readers to philosophical activity. Plato himself never speaks or even appears in any of his dialogues. Instead, Socrates does. But even though Socrates was a real person, it's unlikely that he engaged, historically speaking, in these actual conversations.
Did you hear him say that it's unlikely that Socrates engaged in these conversations? Why didn't he say Socrates never engaged in these conversations? Because he can't say that. Because he doesn't know. Nobody does. And as long as it's unlikely, it's not impossible. It's unlikely.
Am I being too dismissive? I mean, couldn't these dialogues be transcripts of actual conversations that happened in real life? It seems highly improbable that Plato, as a youth, would have taken down a transcript of Socrates' conversations in some kind of shorthand, planning to write them into a book decades later. The idea of making transcripts of conversations is a modern concept anyway. Moreover, looking at Plato's dialogues as a whole, it would be amazing if Socrates had so many conversations with so many famous historical figures. It's more reasonable to conclude that the dialogues were a vehicle through which Plato could propound his own philosophical views, rather than simply a way for him to repeat things that Socrates taught. So that's how we know it's fiction.
So, if there's anything that I'd like for you to remember from this video, it is that these dialogues accounted by Plato could actually be real historical conversations. I'm afraid that me and David Miano would argue until our faces were turned both blue. My proposal is to get the archaeologists and the historians and all the researchers on the YouTube channels in one submarine or in one expedition, and let's go look and research the areas that we have not looked into yet. All the places that are barred in Egypt, all the places that haven't been explored yet, and find out for ourselves. Do it on live TV so that we may all know and find out what is the truth. And the good news is, I believe the truth shall always come to the surface. It's just a matter of time.